proposing or budgeting for 2008. Debt service payments are pretty much on schedule, a little bit less than what we had initially had budgeted. We actually have variable debt in this fund, which we budgeted an interest rate of 4%, but we've been under 4% the full year, so we were able to save some money in this fund, $40,000. The debt payment's pretty big for 2008, but that's due to that balloon payment, which we're going to refinance for $6 million. So once you take that $6 million out, it pretty much levels off, actually drops a little bit for 2008 in terms of actual debt service payments. You can see on the bottom the fund balance. This fund, it varies because we borrow money for capital, and if we have bond proceeds left over, there will be a bigger balance at year end. If you spend out the bonds more, it'll be less. So depending on how quick you spend the bond money, depends on the fund balance. Looking at end of the year, proposed wise at a little over $1 million. Actually, end of the year, this 2007, also $1.5 million. This is our TID number 2. We also have a new TID we just created, TID number 4. This is for blight elimination for property located at 22nd Avenue and 91st Street. The total project cost we're looking for in this TID is $715,000, just over. The developer will be financing this project. The village is at no risk for this project. Once the improvements are made to the property, the tax increments will be generated. These increments will be used to reimburse the developer for the project cost plus interest. There was no budget for 2007 because in 2006 we weren't planning or anticipating this TID. For 2008, the developer is estimating spending a little over $231,000, which will be paid by a grant and some borrowing on the developer's part. This is the budget we have for TID number 4. The last part of the general government funds is special revenue funds. And we have 3 funds for special revenue. We have the fire and rescue, police, and the federally forfeited funds. Revenue for these funds are mainly donations, except for the federally forfeited, which is sharing of federal funds. Expense-wise, we're looking at minor equipment, and also the police fund actually supports our police dog. So you can see the expenditures here. This is very minimal expenditures in these 3 funds. But total overall, we're looking at a fund balance in these funds around $45,000, $46,000. This is a slide we actually had from last year. At the end of the slide, we had the future. What do we want to do in the future? And I left this slide in here to say, have we done what we said for the future? First of all, we want to set the levy limits at the rate allowed by the state. We want to not go below what the state limit is. We've done it for a number of years. We believe we need the money in order to effectively accumulate funds for capital and do the capital purchases we need. So we will be levying at the limits allowed by the state. And we did do that this year. We followed the worksheet, and we are at the limit for the state. Debt service reduction. When debt service payments start to decline in 2009, we do not want to decrease the levy, but we want to purchase equipment and capital that we have postponed a number of years because we were under the freeze. Our 5-year capital plan does follow this debt reduction plan where the money will be used and funneled to our capital purchases and equipment. Use impact fees to save existing taxpayers money. We are collecting impact fees, and this year we're actually using some of the impact fees. For 2008, we'll be using the impact fees to redesign dispatch and redevelop part of Prairie Springs Park. That's about a $20,000 redevelopment in Prairie Springs Park. Borrow only for major village-wide capital purchases. We are borrowing, first time in over 5 years, for 80th Street Extension, bridge reconstruction, and lights and electric for Prairie Springs Park, which we consider major village projects that we could not do with the levy. Use fund balance only as a last resort. We did not use fund balance this year. We were able to balance the budget without using the actual fund balance. And the reserve fund must remain above 15%. In operating, we maintain that fund at 16% this year with this proposed budget. So currently, all the green on this chart I went over. General operating, for general government with operating, capital, and debt service. Also tax increment, debt service and capital in TID 2, as well as look at TID 4. and also the special revenue funds, police, fire and rescue, and federally forfeited. Now I'm going to switch gears and look at our enterprise funds, actually the utility portions of them, our water utility, our sewer utility, clean water utility, and solid waste utility. The clean water and the solid waste was presented publicly on October 29th. And on November 5th, sewer and water was presented publicly. So this will just be a brief overview of what was presented, a summary version of it. I'm going to start with the sewer utility. This is the sewer utility. It shows the budget for 2007, and then in 2008, the proposed adjustments and revised. The proposed was actually what was presented on the dates I mentioned earlier. There were some minor adjustments, mainly shifting a little bit between different areas, and also there was one minor new program that wasn't incorporated here. So that $539 decrease in this fund. And then the revised amount, which is not much different than what was actually presented last week, or last budget meeting. And the change. Operating revenue-wise, we're looking at an increase, actually not because we're raising rates in sewer, but because we're looking at a full year impact of our rate increase that we had last year in May 2007. The reason for that increase was our reaction to the Kenosha Water Utility raising their sewer rates. Sewer treatment is our largest expense in this category. You can see it's budgeted at $1.6 million for 2008. And Kenosha raised our rates substantially. Therefore, we needed to raise our rates in order to be able to keep this utility in the positive light. Operating expense-wise, treatment, as I said before, is our largest expense. The increase here is due to growth and uncertainty. And it's a change of $36,000, 2%. Depreciation, I left depreciation the same. Basically, depreciation is a non-cash item. For this utility, mainly to make sure, cash-wise, we generate enough money to keep this facility or this utility operating. We're not looking at funding depreciation at this point for this utility. Wages and benefits, mainly is inflationary increases, including the 15% health insurance that I mentioned earlier in the general government, and then also implementation of GASB 45. In 2008, we need to recognize other post-employment benefits, and the impact of this fund due to this new regulation is $36,000. Operational and maintenance. Again, this is a missionary, especially fuel and electric in this category. And then, so you can see the total expenses for this utility. New program-wise, actually it's a program savings, it's a minus, because we're looking at cleaning Lake Michigan interceptor line, then offset by the database administrator, and we also have Jazz Tech that was improved in the general government, or is in the general government, that has an allocation to our sewer utility, or actually utilities in general, of 33%, and then also our rec center, 33% for the database administrator. All of our IT personnel full-time is allocated 1/3 to our general government, 1/3 to utilities, and 1/3 to rec class. Also, there's a GIS tech that was allocated, that was split, I think 40% to our utilities. So there's no program reductions in this operating budget. You're looking at a net gain compared to a net loss last year. We're switching, turning this utility around, looking at an $804,000 increase in net gain, actually putting us into the positive in terms of operating in this category. The changes here is mainly moving items between, there's some line reductions we had earlier, similar to what we did in the general government. When I did the summary for the last meeting, I stuck it into operating maintenance, but part of it was due to treatment, the line reduction, so that was just shift there. And wages and benefits.